With the newest set in Pokemon Pocket, Secluded Springs, we got this brand new Pokemon tool card, Memory Light, which honestly changes the game entirely. Well, mainly for content creation, but also for building really nice decks. It says the Pokemon this card is attached to can use any attack from its previous evolution. So with the help of chat, both on YouTube and Twitch, I spent the past hour going through every single set, combing through Pokemon and their evolutions to find which cards might benefit the most from Memory Light. And here they are. First up is Genetic Apex, and the first Pokemon is Psyduck. I think Psyduck can work very well because of the move Headache. It deals 10 damage, but you can also stop your opponent from using any supporter cards, and it's a colorless move, which means you could play it on top of a Golduck, be able to attack for 70, but also have the option to stop your opponents from using any supporters. And that's just the first card in today's video. Next one is a little spicy for you guys, and it might work, it might not work, but the idea is this. Seadra would be required to evolve from your Horsey, and if you have 3 energy, which potentially you might, maybe you don't, doesn't matter, you're able to Water Arrow attack one of your opponent's Pokemon for 50 damage. That means you can hit him on the bench. Well, if you use something like a supporter card Cyrus, and then the new Kingdra EX right here, you can bring that Pokemon in and trap them. Also, that does 140, so if it's something higher than 140, you could potentially trap them, but it also might not be a great move. Either way, you can still run it with Kingdra because Kingdra traps, and I believe the new Horsey right here with Water Arrow, it is a promo card, can still do that same thing for you. It can hit one of your opponent's Pokemon, you can Cyrus them, and then you can trap them. Actually, that's really spicy. You can trap them with Kingdra the following turn. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. Next up is going to be things like Gengar EX, which obviously makes so much sense because it requires 3 energy, but you can play this, evolve on turn 2, have 1 energy, attack with things like any of your Ghastlies. Did I spell that right? And of course not. Of course I didn't. Your Ghastly, you could hit with Suffocating Gas, you can Astonish, you can do either of those 2 things, maybe even Haunter, because while you're still allowed to attack for 20 and you're slowly building up your Gengar EX, this ability here says they can't use any supporter cards, so I think that's going to be very strong. Next up is kind of cheeky, and it's Primeape, which I can't spell. Again, this whole video is going to be me not spelling and I'm outing myself. But this Primeape right here for 90 HP can deal up to 100 damage if we have damage on herself. And I think it's worth noting that the Mankey, the promo Mankey right here that you might have, you might not have, this is one of the first promo cards from Pokemon Pocket. We still can't trade promos. I don't know if we will in the future or if we're ever going to be able to get these cards, but I think that synergizes really well with that Genetic Apex Primeape. Next up is going to be just the regular Muck, I guess. I guess you could say a Alolan, but we're not there yet. Venoshock with the regular Grimer. This thing does 120 if your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, and then if you have something like your Grimer right here, Poison Gas says, yeah, you get to poison them. So that's actually 10, 10, and then another 10 damage on top of that 120. That's a total of 150 damage across 2 turns, which could work if that's something you're going for. And then one idea that I actually posted last night on Twitter, woke up today and broke my entire profile. It was the most viral post I've ever posted on X, I say Twitter still, was Melton, because this guy can amass and ramp yourself, and you can go right into Metal from Genetic Apex and continually ramp yourself with that memory, all while taking minus 20 damage, which is pretty sick. All right, now we're gonna move on to, what is it? Mythical Island, right? And honestly, there's a lot of things we can talk about now for Mythical Island, like Execute, which can take a grass energy and ramps yourself, but now you can go into the Mythical Island Executor, ramp yourself again, and do a lot of damage with Psychic, or go right into a Alolan Executor and then ramp yourself into a Tropical Hammer. So right there, that's already 2 potential evolutions that can take advantage of this growth spurt that, mind you, you can put into any deck now. It does not have to be a grass type deck. You can put this in a fire type deck because you can still evolve into your Alolan Executor and never need to give it that 1 energy to use it as a basic. You can just use that move right on top of Alolan Executor. Pretty sick, but not as sick or as cool or as spicy as this next one. I would like to apologize right now because I imagine we're going to be going into a somewhat very aggressive meta with this card, especially with the options. For example, Salazzle here says your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned for 30 damage. If you put the Memory Light on top of this with Salandit, well, now you're hitting them for 50 and they're poisoned, so that's 60 for 1 energy. Bro, what is that? That's crazy. You could also, I guess, in theory, go into this Salazzle that poisons and burns them, and then use this so you're dealing 30, 40, and then you got the burn damage of 60, and then the following turn, you see what I'm saying? You do another 50. There is that option, but I think it's a little bit too much. You don't need to go that route. I think just these two together is pretty aggressive. Next up is one that I've already actually seen in practice. Oh my god, here we go. Am I gonna not be able to spell Gyarados? There it is. Got it. Gyarados EX. Specifically this one, you're going to want to evolve as soon as possible. However, if you evolve in the active spot, it doesn't feel good. Not to worry, because Magikarp Leap Out is an option. You evolve, you have that massive HP. Also, don't forget, Mega Gyarados is going to be able to leap out now. So if you evolve your active and you leap out your Mega, what are you doing? Like, how are you getting them back? Unless you Sabrina and they have nothing else. So not only Gyarados EX, but this tool could be worth noting for Mega Pokemon. I could be wrong, but only time will tell. Next up is Scolipede. Scolipede. Why did I say Scolipede? This is literally one of my favorite Pokemon. How did I butcher this name so bad? Sidebar, the other day, my dog's name is Cleo. I called her Chloe, and I felt so bad for the rest of the day. Anyway, this thing can do 120 damage if your opponent's Pokemon is poisoned, which if you evolve from your Whirlipede, you can hit them for 20, poison them, that's 30, and then chip into 120 right afterwards. And then another thing worth noting, I think potentially, is Eevee. More specifically, this Eevee right here. If you evolve from this Eevee, you will always be able to just continue a step up. Cheese your opponent. Evolve into Glaceon, flips coins. You might be able to do some more damage on top of that chip damage with Glaceon's ability. Actually, you know what? I want to cook that. I want to do a step Eevee into Glaceon. That actually sounds sick. And that's going to be it for Mythical Islands. Let's step into Space-Time Smackdown with Torterra. It's very important that we can talk about this. During your next turn, this Pokemon can't use Frenzy Plant. If it says the specific move, you can use Memory Light to then use an attack. However, if it says something like, I guess I can show you guys here, Leafeon, where is it? Right here. If it says during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack, it doesn't matter if you have Memory Light, you just can't attack. There's nothing that can be done here. Sorry, not sorry. So I think Torterra is good because you can go into this attack. If they're still alive, you can hit them with your Turtwig damage, whatever that is. So that's pretty good. We can also talk about the Stoke Magmar that can set up your Magmortar, either of them. But then also let's talk about Electabuzz since we're on that same boat. Any of these Electabuzzes, I guess if you wanted to, but I think the best one would be Electabuzz here. You charge, you evolve, you can still keep charging if you need to, so that's cool. And now one that I'm actually going to be building a deck very shortly on, I think could be very, very, very strong, is this guy. Infernape EX, 170, has access to Lily for 2 energy, deals 140, but then you discard all of your energy. Well, that stinks, okay? But if you give the energy the next turn, you can chip damage for 20 from your Chimchar. Again, you have a lot of HP. You don't even need to really retreat. So let's just say there's something that's higher than 140. Let's say they're 160 because of a cape. Well, you can hit them for 140 and then the next turn knock them out. I think Infernape got a massive buff with Memory Light. I could be wrong, but I'm actually super excited to test this out because I have ideas. Other things we should talk about on the same boat as Gengar EX are Pokemon that just require so much energy, like both these versions of Mamoswine. I guess you could use it on Mamoswine and then be able to attack with Swinub, but I still think you need at least like 2 energy, so it stinks on both of them. I mean, you can do it. I don't know if you do it. That's what I'm saying. Doo-doo. Also worth noting, any Pokemon that has teleport, I think, be able to pivot is going to be good. So obviously the Abra I probably won't talk about that later on, but then also rolls into your Gardevoir or maybe even your Gelate EX, Gallade for everybody else. I think Rhyperior also might have some application because with a Rhyhorn, right? There is a Rhyhorn that attacks for 2. Well, let's say you have Tyrogue, you attach an energy, and then the following turn you go into this Rhyhorn, but then you evolve with the Rare Candy into your Rhyperior, you can hit for 40. So you just did 60 across 2 turns from your Tyrogue into this guy. The next turn, you give another energy, that's another 40 on their active, right? That could be, let's say, a Charizard EX, right? They just stoked you. And then the following turn, you can Rhyperior them for 150 and win the game. I think Rhyperior might be looking pretty good, but it's not the only one that I think you guys will enjoy, especially in today's video. Let's see what else we got. Obviously, we need to talk about Rampardos. I think, like, just because you can use this, I don't think you do. I understand why people say that it might be good, but like the 130 is probably what you want to go for. But if you hit 130 2 times, you're down to 50. So if you do it again, you knock yourself out. However, with the Memory Light, it gives you the option to stay alive if you evolved from Cranidos and not Rare Candy. That's another thing I probably should have mentioned at the start. It only uses the Pokemon that you are directly on top of. So if you do not evolve into your Cranidos, it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? So very important to note that. And then finally, regardless of which Staraptor you're evolving into, if you don't have Berry in your hand, you will always have the option of having 1 energy and then potentially plucking and removing your opponent's tools before taking any damage. So I think that's pretty good utility, especially for this card that can go into any deck and you could throw in a Berry, right? Let's make it a super aggro deck. I'm just going to say this now, Staraptor Berry into the aggro Salazzle deck. What? Who said that? That's crazy. And now we're going to move on to Triumphant Light. And I only think there's like 2 here, actually. I think it's Abomasnow. And the application for Abomasnow is maybe you put this in a deck with Mantike, Abomasnow, and Arceus, right? But what if you go first? What if you go first with Snover? Kind of stinks, but on turn 2, if you have Arceus on your bench, you can give your Snover 1 energy, evolve into your Abomasnow, and it says here, if you have the Arceus or Arceus EX, attacks used by this Pokemon, right? Memory Light lets this Pokemon still attack, but use any move, costs 1 less. So you can actually use Abomasnow and then go from your Snover, Ice Shard, but I don't think you want to do that one. You want to do this one, and Corkscrew for 1 energy, 1 water energy for 30 damage, and then the following turn go into that 80. So it kind of helps you going first if you're in that specific situation. And then the next card for Triumphant Light is one that I really like. Right here, is it not working? Tyranitar. If you have Arceus or Arceus EX in play, attacks used by, again, this Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active. Well, you can Rare Candy this. It doesn't matter. But what if you use the Larvitar that only requires 1 energy to attack? Well, you can hit for 40, right? And then also have something this tanky on the board while still building it up. You can literally invest 1 energy onto this guy and then invest all your other energy into your Arceus EX. You can invest it into literally anything else you want, right? So this could be throw in a Rocky Helmet on this, go crazy, but you're guaranteed 1 energy going to deal 40 damage. That's crazy. I'm speechless. All right, so we finished Triumphant Light. Let us move on to Shining Revelry. And it honestly, in my personal opinion, I think it just buffs all of the EXs, right? Your Beedrill EX can now either remove an energy or you can use Kakuna, will potentially paralyze your opponent. So that's 1. A Wugtrio has some good application because Pop Out, Throughout. Well, if you don't have the 3 energy, you can use, let's see here, whatever this guy's attack is, Spring Out to do the exact same thing for only 1 energy. So that's pretty good in itself. The next one I think could be good is Lucario, the Lucario EX. While you're charging up, same with Gengar EX, to get up to this point, you could chip damage, 20 damage because of your Riolu that you evolved from. Next up is Clodsire, because this guy does 120 damage if they're poisoned. Well, if they're not poisoned and you don't have Poison Barb, you can use your Paldean Wooper to poison them. So there's that option right there. And then finally, the one that everyone's very excited about is Bibarel EX. This thing is kind of crazy because Carefree Press 100 damage is a lot, but it doesn't knock out things. However, you know what it does knock out, guys? It knocks out things that have had their HP reduced by half. I don't think there's anything in the game that's going to survive that outside of more continuous healing. So if you're able to Super Fang into your Bibarel EX, I think crazy things can start to happen. All right, let's keep it going. Celestial Guardians, Decidueye with any sort of skill dive pre-evolution is going to be good because you can snipe them with this guy and then guarantee the Pierce the Pain. I think that's going to be broken. Definitely my first grass Pokemon that I think you play Memory Light instead of Leaf Cape. I think that's, I think you definitely do that. Honestly, every single EX, we'll just talk about all of them. Incineroar EX, you can play the Heat Tackle Litten, so that way you can chip your own damage and then go into Scar Charge Smash for more damage. I know Primarina isn't in this set, but we'll still talk about it. Primarina EX, and you can run the Poplio that potentially sleeps. I don't think you actually do. I think you would play Giant Cape, but it's an option. I'm just throwing it out there. You definitely can do that. Alolan Ninetales is good because you can evolve even if you're going first and be able to take a water energy from your energy zone and attach to this Pokemon. So it'll help you ramp into your Alolan Ninetales, which might actually finally be good, especially since I have the amazing full arts that I've never been able to build a deck for. So I'm very excited for that. I think Memory Light and Alolan Ninetales could work. I think another one to talk about would be Alolan Golem right here. For 4 energy, you can deal 150 damage. You discard 2 energy, so you can go from 150 to 40 damage back to back without just sitting there not being able to attack anymore. And it's also worth noting that this 40 can actually deal 70 damage because Alolan Golem with, what is it, Sophocles, the supporter card right here. Let's talk about that. Like, that's a whole nother can of worms that we're not even talking about, is the synergy that you can use with these guys on top of Memory Light. So that 40 actually does 70 now while you're still trying to ramp up your energy. Chris Griffin is crazy. Oh man. Another one we can talk about is Grumpig. It does the same thing as Alolan Ninetales. You can just ramp with your what is it, Spoink right here. Spoink ramps itself. Nothing crazy. I guess it's like I said earlier, Alolan Muck, right? This Muck right here could be used with the Alolan Grimer. I personally don't have any, but you know, it's an option. I'll throw that out there. And then finally, I think Cosmog is very interesting because, again, it's a teleport. So what you're able to do with this, more specifically, is your Solgaleo, which has Rising Road. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you can switch it into your active. So if you're ever in a situation where you're like, I want to retreat, I don't want to lose my energy, I want to retreat, and then potentially, like my opponent, I know for a fact they don't have a Sabrina, a Cyrus, they can't get this guy back in. I can teleport, I can Lily the next turn, I can Lily this turn, I can teleport, you see what I'm saying? Save a couple turns, and then come right back in for more damage. I think there is application there. I don't know if you actually do that. I don't think you ever stiffen with your Cosmog. Like, I don't understand why we would do that. It's just like, I'm just going to stiffen here. I have 2 energy. I can use the 2 energy. I don't think we stiffen, right? I think we go Soul Breaker every time for damage. And that's going to be the last one for Celestial Guardians. Extra Dimensional is also pretty simple. It's the Lycanroc EX. It requires 3 energies, so if you're able to evolve from something like your Rockruff that deals 20 damage, you can start doing chip damage, and then by the time you get online, you could deal that 130. That's good. Another one you guys talked about is, am I spelling it wrong? Palosand. This guy right here. More specifically, Sand Tomb, or I guess this one, it really doesn't matter. They require a lot of energy. This one traps as well. So if you play something like Sand, is it not working? Okay, well, I'll just go here. I can't look up Sand apparently. Sandy Gast, either of these, they'll do 30 damage for 2 energy, but then on top of that, if you use this right here, you can heal it and do more damage onto your opponent's Pokemon. So that's pretty cool. And then finally, for extra dimensional, another one worth noting is Crocodile. You can start charging up this guy. You can have the Sandile be able to chip out damage. I can't look up Sand. I keep forgetting. I don't know why it won't let me. Sand is a bad word. All right, so this guy for 20 while you're charging up for Crocodile. All right, now we're going to go into Eevee Grove, and I can talk about every single Sweets Relay. The one I really want to talk about is Vanillix, because you can actually have your Vanillite evolve into your Vanillix with a rare candy, and now have something at 140, only 1 energy, and then just continually keep stacking. But that's not the only idea, right? We can, I guess, still do that with a Swirl Puff, a Slurpuff. That's what it's called, Slurpuff. So again, for 1 energy, you can still go Sweets Relay back to back to back to back, and you have a lot of energy. You could even do it without Creamy, right? You could run it with the Cherubi, right? Because it is a tool. You could run other tools. I think Sweets Relay is going to be massively buffed by this single item itself. Excited to test that out. I haven't yet. Another one that's got kind of cheeky and very toxic that I want to try out is Galvantula. For 2 lightning energy, we deal 70, but we discard all our energy, and now our opponent is paralyzed. They cannot do anything outside of Lyra and Nurse Joy, right? Pokemon Professor Lady, Center Lady, or whatever it's called, right? Well, if you also use Joltik here, that if flip a coin, hey, have will, guarantees a paralysis, you can give the energy and then do it again. They can't play the game. They can't play the game outside of you having will. So that is super toxic and really, really funny. I guess you could use the Malasada. I don't think anyone will. I think a lot of people even forgot that card existed. We already talked about Creamy, Aggro, Sweets Relay. Yeah, we talked about all that. Now we're going into Wisdom of Sea and Sky. There is Tangrowth, which I guess we can talk about. Either of these, it doesn't really matter. Wait a second. Yeah, it's right here. Grass Knot, 10 plus. You do 40 more damage for each energy in your opponent's active Pokemon. This is a really good effect. However, what if your opponent's Pokemon doesn't have any retreat, right? Well, I think you could use it with the Tangela that deals 40 damage and heals 1 for yourself. I think that could be okay. Not the best, not the worst. There is also talk of Meganium, but again, for something that heals, I don't think you care. Like, you would rather Leaf Cape on this. But I thought it'd be worth mentioning. One that I do think could be good is Feraligatr. Yeah, Feraligatr requires 3 energy, and it discards every time you attack. But on top of that, if you have at least 1 water energy, you can start chipping damage for 20 because that is Totodile's attack. That's pretty cool. And I think the one that I'm very excited about, you guys tell me why. Xatu here with Will. Reduce them down to 10. Okay, that's awesome. Throw on a Rocky Helmet. They still won't attack you. Okay, next turn, you Cyrus them back because they're probably going to retreat. And you know what you have? You have, well, I just said Rocky Helmet. Never mind. You don't put the Rocky Helmet. You put the Memory Light. Ignore me. Because then you could just peck them the following turn and knock it out. I still don't know which is better, but the fact that you're able to do that is pretty cool. Another one a lot of you guys are very excited about is Donphan EX for 160. It does this, but then also the brand new Phanpy has Flail. So as long as you have at least 10 HP, you can deal up to 150 damage with just 1 energy, which is absurd. You can actually deal more than that. You can deal 170 damage because of Giant Cape. But yeah, that's kind of cracked. Wait, no, you wouldn't have Giant Cape. I keep forgetting, like, you could only have the 1 tool. All right, again, ignore me. This video has gone long enough. We're wrapping up, you guys. Sylveon EX is also worth noting because you could run it with this, and then the Eevee that finds a friend. That's 1 turn, 3 cards from your deck. And then finally, Secluded Springs. I only really found 2 cards, being the new Slow King, being able to water gun, or potentially, yeah, you're just probably going to water gun. You're not going to want to do anything else. That way you don't have to get rid of any of the tools, right? You could just attach 1 tool into your Slow King. And then finally, the Lickitung. Lickitung, the new one, that can deal 30 damage to any Pokemon, and then Licky EX, where you can Cyrus them and then also deal another 100. But there you guys have it. Hopefully it wasn't a long video. I really wanted to do this type of video before I started building the decks, because this is going to be such a good month. I feel like, oh my God, the amount of content that I'm going to give you guys this month is insane. But there you guys have it. Let me know if I missed anything. I tried not to. Don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you like these type of breakdown videos, because that's what I do. I enjoy it. Anyway, thanks guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Adios.